Hey guys, this will be video 3 for the how to design build a 58 Explorer replica out of black Limba or Carina. Uh, Video 2, I haven't done a video I guess in a couple of weeks, it's been a while, but nonetheless, the only work I've done on this guitar, well, I've actually done quite a bit. I've got the neck closer to finish. We'll talk about that in a moment. And I can't remember if I had this pocket pitched, but I've got this pocket pitched, as well as I do have this neck fit to the body. And I'm not just talking about this about what all I've accomplished, but I'm kind of covering it to show you my order of operations that I'm going through when I'm prepared when I'm just building a guitar. But this neck is fit and it's basically ready to be glued in. Very close. It might require just a little bit more shape work, but once I get it to that point right there, now and I've verified my center lines and trapezoidal paths and things like that, then I know I'm ready to go to my rounding jig. I've got a jig that I've used to route from overhead in this direction, or well, actually in that direction, and then the jig is designed that I can flip it over 180 degrees and then route this side right here, and I actually route my heel and everything all at once. It just works really well, and it's not 100% shaped. Sorry about that. It's not 100% shaped, but it's pretty darn close. And anyway, if you've never done it that way, just build a jig, and the jig does not have to taper. You can actually, because you want to go ahead and pre-taper your neck. I need to stop talking about this immediately, but all I can say, you don't have to have a tapered jig. When you're routing this side, just bring this up flush with your surface, and then when you're routing the other side, break everything loose, and then bring that up flush with that surface. And after it's all said and done, it works. It works really well to just flush everything up and then you machine it that way. I need to stop talking about that. So I'll cover that in some future videos. But just let your imagination run with you. See, the reason I bring this up, some guys like the idea of routing a neck like this, and it is. I got to tell you, it's fairly simple if you're doing a bolt-on neck. That's the way I would do a bolt-on neck, is route from this side, this side and that side. But see, in our case, we've got a heel, and we'd have to stop right here, and then or actually you'd have to stop about back right there, and then shape all that heel by hand. And because I build a lot of big body jazz guitars where the heel is, sometimes the heel is 3 inches tall, then man, I want to be able to shape as much of that heel as I can, and that requires that I work from this point. Okay, that ought to make perfect sense. And I'll try not to drop that router bit this time. All right, let's just talk about this briefly. I have a double adjustable truss rod installed, and anytime you do install a truss rod, make certain that you seal all the location. I may have covered this in video 2, but I don't remember. But before the truss rod goes in, after you've done all your initial machine work and fit work, make certain that there are no raw sides at all, because humidity and climate basically, regardless of wherever that climate is, will travel right down that truss channel, and it will create a really unstable neck from within, and you'll never understand why your neck is warping or twisting or just being or requiring a lot of adjustment when you go from one climate to the next. And this is really critical if you're a touring guitarist, and playing the guitars on the plane, and then it's in a van, and then it's in behind stage, and then you're walking out on stage in South Florida and it's humid and 100 degrees. Then those things are really critical that you've got a well sealed neck. Do a good job fitting this. This is I like the idea of doing it this way. I set my truss rod about a 1/16 of an inch deeper than. I don't flush them. I never flush them, because I want a solid wood surface, so that once I glue my fretboard down, that I don't have to worry about excess glue, or maybe having in other words, I get a 100% solid glue surface, and I'm able to just clamp with confidence and know that everything's leveling up nicely. Okay. And I know this is just a lot of general conversation, but just read between the lines if you're building a guitar. And as I always say, just build your own guitar, because you know just because I discuss doing something in a certain way doesn't mean that you have to do it that way. Uh, I will. I think I've already covered this a little bit, but I'll get the templates out in a minute. I'll show you how I route all this. But the end goal is obviously the location. You want the location correct, and that would just be based on your templates and or your drawings that you're building from. And then you would be building, I think, three different. Yeah, you're going to have to build three different jigs to do this. One jig to route the inner pocket, and a second jig or template to machine out the shelf, because you couldn't just take a router bit and put a 1/4 inch bearing on it, or offset bearing, because it wouldn't machine deep enough on the ends. You got to have somewhere for the screw holes to go through and stuff like that. So, and if you did a really good job building your jigs, then any guitar you build, this is going to fit with ease. Or either if your client elects to go with a different cover, then it's going to fit with ease and fall out with ease and stuff like that. So once you get your jigs machined and everything's really cool and precise, then you almost don't have to think anymore, other than just along a center line this way and a center line that way, and then just makes it easy. And I will say this: these three, well, actually, these two outer locations, they define everything. Once I have that point right there, and once I have that point right there, then I know exactly. If I was doing this by hand and not a jig, then I would drill this one and drill this one, and just make certain that this one is in the center and on the center line. This center line, that center line, and then repeat the process when I'm back here laying out to temporarily attach my template routing template to the body. And I'll try to spend a little bit of time at the end of this video actually showing you how you do that, because once you see me, if you can figure out, if you can understand how to do it back here, it's the exact same principle up here. It's just no different. Other than, I will say this: every bit, my template is designed such that every bit of these locations are on one template. And once that template is fastened to the guitar and is fastened on the center line of the body, then I'm just routing out wherever the bearing will follow. Okay. And most of you guys understand that, but if you've never done this before, that's incredibly intimidating, trying to figure out how to get all this stuff done. And do you have one template just to do this, or one template just to do that, or that's your call. Because if you're building a bunch of flat top guitars, well, maybe have one template just to do your center line work, and then have another template that allows you to do, rather than the Explorer replica type configuration, well, then you might have an additional one for an SG or a Les Paul Jr., et cetera, et cetera. So, what's going on down the center line is just that. It's just the center line. What's going on in the footprint or the perimeter is just that. They're different from guitar to guitar. Okay. So anyway, let me check the time. 9 minutes. Okay, I'm just gonna have to go. This is the third time I've done this video right now, and this is the second time I've done this video over the last 4 days. I did this 3 or 4 nights ago. It's an hour-long video, and for the most part, it was a good video. But my God, the information was just endless and endless. So I just deleted the video, and I'm gonna try my best to get myself under control and not get so long-winded on these videos. Uh, but with respect to realizing that this is a ton of information, and sometimes I need to go in depth talking about how to make certain that you don't, you know, route that improperly, and that takes 30 minutes sometimes just to talk about one operation. So Okay, so we talked about that enough. Let me get this off the table, or at least over to the side, and then we talked about this enough to know that that it is for this body and it will fit and it's ready to be glued in. But let's do this. I'll try to leave that on the table. I'll tell you what. Let me get it off the table because I don't think we're going to need it for discussion anymore. Because what I want to do with this guitar is do a bit of a flyby as to what this is, because whatever I discuss with respect to this guitar, the black guitar, which is nothing but a what do you call it? A trap. That's the word I was looking for. It is a trap for smudge. So and you look at a black guitar and they just smudge, but nonetheless, it's really beautiful, and it's kind of cool because with the nitro cellulose lacquer finish, it just has this beautiful, warm, vintage glow. And anytime I do a listing, I always try to let people know it's like, look, it's not going to be perfect. It's just going to have that old vintage guitar glow to it. But personally, I think they're beautiful when you just build them this way. Now it's slippery as glass because that's sanded to 1500 grit, wet sanded, and then hand polished 2 coats. But you know, it's got a few little nicks and dings and stuff like that from just being a handmade guitar. But the reason I want to show this guitar is because I'm selling it. And I also want to show the assembly process of installing these pickups, especially excuse me, especially the pickups because it will have the bridge, tailpiece, and strings and tuners and all that jazz. But I'm going to be selling it without the pickups, and I want someone to see how they would be installed. Okay, so and I think as far as yeah, let me just do this. I've only got 3 screws in here, so, and I have done a screw count. I always like the idea of just having whatever screws I need in a little location so that I have, if I end up putting everything together and I'm short one screw, then I need to back up and punt because that means the screw is probably buried in the wildcat fur and is at the point of about to scratch up the back. So whatever head count I have in here, this tin should be empty by the time this is installed. Okay, so let's talk about path, PATH, the path options as far as installing the pickups. I just drilled these with about a 16-inch long. I did the first pass, PASS, is with a 1/8 inch bit here and here, and then I follow it with a 1/4 inch pass because the braided wire it's over 1/8 of an inch. You might get it in there, but it would be really tight. And if you try to force a vintage braided wire in a tight hole, it's just going to start pushing back on you. And anytime you're drilling a location like this, please make certain that you put some sort of sacrificial material over here on the edge that would guarantee that your drill bit, excuse me, that your drill bit doesn't burn down into the body. I actually did that once, not too long ago. It was about a year and a half ago, where I was building a little guitar, and I really wasn't paying attention, and the guitar burnt the drill bit burned the corner there, and I had to do some repair work and touch up work. So just don't get in a hurry. But I'm going to talk about the reasoning for these locations, and also once you're installing your pickups, which side of the leg to put the pickup wires on and stuff like that. So let's just build the guitar. All right. Okay, I've already got my orientation, for everything, and then where the wire is going to come through. I do, as I was talking about, to keep the vintage wire from pushing back on me. A lot of times I'll just put some tape on there, and that will guarantee that stays together. And I think these are called hemostat pliers. Surgical. I just call them surgical pliers because you can lock them as well. They work out great for this. I also like them because they have a rounded over edge, and they're very unlikely that they would scratch anything. Oh, take that back. This needs to go. Okay, this goes in behind the leg and allows for perfect clearance for adjustment. As soon as you get it dropped in, go ahead and pick up a couple of ring screws. I don't tighten these down all the way because after I get the pick guard in, then I tighten everything. Not a precise fit, but since it's a hand-built guitar, when you were drilling this, in the event this might have traveled over a little bit, if you put that screw in first out of poor luck, then it might pull everything off, and then you would get lost and confused when you're trying to fit everything. So just fit everything loose, and by going ahead and putting those two nuts in there, I mean those two screws in there, I know that I'm okay to now start flipping the body over. And obviously, where I want this wire to come out in this location is on the high point, is as high as possible in this cavity. So if it is at the highest point back here, I need to feed that wire in at a relatively low point, or as low as possible right here. And odds are I probably just came out exactly where I want to be and above all of my potentiometers. Okay. And I've already started out with a real clean path, P-A-T-H, where everything's tucked away and whatnot. And I'd be willing to bet you this guitar that there's no clustering back here, because after you get your three-way in and all that, you're going to have 5 wires coming in that location. It's going to get really congested. And at this point, when you're putting the pickups in, you're already going to have the three-way selector in with those 3 wires already in that location. So just make certain that when you're putting your pickups in, just try to feed your wires in as low to the body as possible, which will allow you to come in as high as possible back here. Self-explanatory. And right now, and if you were actually going to go ahead and wire this, I'll just go ahead and briefly cover it. Okay, this being the bridge pickup location. Let's just say it was shorter, but typically what I would do is come around somehow or another. I need to stop talking about this because I'll end up wasting way too much time talking about this, but I'll do the best I can to just give you some general information. I kind of come around in that fashion right there. I've left a little bit of slack. If this is a brand new pickup, yeah, this is really important. Don't just snip off 4 inches of this. Try to maybe make a really long run all the way back to the back. Let me just do the thing. I wasn't planning on talking about wiring at all, but just try to do a nice long run like that, and then you'll be soldering the braid, the ground, to the top of the potentiometer, and then the lead will just be going into that outside lug. And then if you didn't like those pickups, and if I'm not mistaken, I think Seymour Duncan will allow you to return stuff even after you soldered it in. If you didn't like it, I may be wrong about that, but I guarantee you they have a stipulation that as long as you don't cut the lead, cut any length off the lead. So, and a lot of you guys already know that, but just don't go snipping to try to keep a real short, clean run in here, because if you don't like those pickups and you want to sell them, they just lost a lot of value because they're only usable for that particular guitar that you built. All right, let me just get this stuff out of the way, because the primary thing I'm wanting to cover with this video is just showing you the installation of the pickups, because some people have never installed pickups. And I know when I first started messing around with guitars as a kid, that was always really kind of scary to me. I didn't really. Okay. Typically, that's the location because of the orientation. The wire is going to be on the right side. So, because this is a fairly long run, you're probably not going. Oh, I almost messed up. Let me go ahead and do this. Oh, I need to show you first. Sorry. Same thing, directly behind the leg. Go straight down. Has plenty of room in there for movement, adjustment, etc., etc. Toothpick. Although I probably would be fairly lucky about hitting that spot. The main reason I want to get this screw in here is just to make certain that I have a little super short one in here. Yeah, there it is. Just so that when I flip the guitar over, it doesn't fall out and bang on the table or either scratch the guitar. But it's still loose enough that, I can move it around if necessary. Okay. So, let me just go ahead and do the job. Okay. Kind of common sense. Nothing really special. One thing I failed to mention, I've never done this before, but you might, if you did not want to run that wire long in the control cavity, you might leave some of the length up in here. I've never done that, so I don't know if that's good practice or not. And I don't think it would create any sort of problems, but it may. And I'll just go straight to the finish line because this is so easy to explain. Typically, what happens here, because of the shortness of this neck wire, I typically just do a real quick 180 like that, solder back here in the back, and then the lead will go to the outside lug here, and then the three-way. See, the three-way will go to the middle. In other words, um, the three-way selector, if you select the neck pickup, then that wire is making connection right here. If you select the bridge pickup, that wire is making connection in the middle right there. When you're in the middle, then both of them are hot. That's kind of a given. But from the actual pickups themselves, you will come from the neck pickup, ground onto the potentiometer, and then solder to the outside lug on the right in this situation. And since this potentiometer is facing in the opposite direction, you would circle around, as I mentioned, ground back here on the body, and then you would connect your bridge pickup at that lug, the outside lug. Okay. It's really simple. And the cool thing is when I ship this guitar, it'll already have the capacitor in here and all that wiring will be done. The output jack will be connected. So there won't even be any lugs open for making a mistake back here. You'll only have 2 lugs available and it'll be pretty much, I won't say idiot proof, but it's about as close as you can get. All right. Let's see if I can just tuck these out of the way, because I want to set it up with the parchment and then I want to mark it up with the black. Because when I sell this, I'm basically going to let them select whatever cover they might want. Very nice. I love that. I think it's really cool. I actually love the parchment. Yeah, I did tighten that earlier. I love the parchment. I think it's really classy. Other than all the smudge marks, man, just nothing I can do about that. But the cool thing about this, if you did a good job with all your lacquer work, even if it's not perfect, you should have a really beautiful glow as far as that goes. So that when you are playing it, and it'll capture the lights really well, and just be a beautiful guitar. All right, so that's what it would look like if you didn't have a pickguard, or if you put a black pickguard. Kind of real natural. But let's you did a real good job with all your jigs and all your machine work on the front end. See how those are moving around a little bit? That's what we want right now, because I want to get this first. Want to get that first nut in that location right there. But the thing about this particular profile, this footprint, uh, you got to have all this machine work very precise because of these outside, lines. Everything's very revealing. And when yeah, it's not really important, but anytime I machine and install for the Explorer, if I'm setting everything up, because what I do first, yeah, I can talk about this. It might get a little bit long-winded, but the first thing I do before I even put the pick guard on is I go ahead and string the guitar up, like in that state before I put that pick guard on there, and even before the pickups were fitted, perfectly fitted. I would string it up and then I would install the pickups based on all these dimensions, but verify that the actual string path PATH across the high E and the low E locations were consistent and very true. And if you built a good guitar, then everything else will follow that. But if you're off a little bit, then you'll have to start making corrections according to what you see visually and what you need, physically for the guitar to actually perform properly. But if you did a really good job with everything, what you see visually and what you have from a performance standpoint, both will be correct. Meaning string path and even, footprints of your pick guards in relation to the body itself. Yeah, I keep forgetting these are actual Gibson dimensions. These screws, they are oval head. I'm sorry, they're tapered and then with the oval top. I can't show them; they're so small. But they're basically a number three. Number three Gibson pickguard screw. If you're wanting to stay true to historical, and to me, those things are really, really important because if you start deviating from traditional, well, then don't expect it to look 100% accurate. It might not matter, but to me, it does. Because once I hold this up in front of the camera, you'll kind of see what I'm talking about. Let me go ahead and get the rest of these now that I've got this pick guard in here. I can go ahead and tighten these down a little bit. And I mean, as soon as you feel them kiss the bottom, stop, because they'll strip out immediately. It's such a fine thread. I hope that's in the camera, but it should be in the camera. So as you can see, the guitars, they go together really fast if you did a good job planning your build. I think this one's stripped a little bit. Yeah, I'm gonna have to tighten up that thread base. But there you have it, empty tin. Let you know that all your screws are in the body. But from a historical standpoint, let's see if we can just get it on. I got so much crap over there on the table. Let's see if I can. I don't know if this even shows up on the camera. I know I can see it. It drives me crazy. This thing is smudged so bad. But what I'm looking for here is here's my camera. I'm looking for fitment. I got a little fur on that. Oh, it's the protective film on top of that. But I'm looking for this incredible fitment right here, and you have to use a 1/4 inch bit to achieve this corner here. You might route the whole thing out with a 1/2 inch bit, but once you come back into these corners, you're going to have to hit that with a 1/4 inch bit of some sort in order to achieve that. And I used to try to shape them by hand with a file, and it just doesn't work out. So it's very time consuming, but you do your initial route work, and then you come back and do your final route work with additional blocking attached to your template, and then that guarantees that you're able to just go into that corner and go zip, zip out the corner, go over here and zip out that little corner. And don't be tempted to try to like run the perimeter or anything like that, because your block may be off a little bit. I'll talk about this more, but basically all you're doing is just taking out that material in the corner to assure that you get a beautiful fit around your pickup rings. And this, as I mentioned earlier, every bit of this applies to a clear coat guitar, so it's no different. Black is pretty good because if you screwed up, it would act as like a shadow, and even against the white parchment. So you can get away with a little bit of mistakes there if you get off a little bit. Okay, probably one of my favorite setups is these are number 6, 32 threads per inch for the vintage Kluson ABR1 reproduction. And then, but I just go to my big box hardware store and I get these in stainless steel with the Phillips head top. And that allows me to just leave this over to the side as I'm building the guitar and I'm aligning everything. Excuse me. I'm able to pick this up, leave about 1/8 of an inch of the stud sticking out below that. And I've already got these machined, so now all I got to do is just align these in that location, and now reach up here with my Phillips head screwdriver and go ahead and grab hold of the actual thumb wheel, because if you don't hold the thumb wheel, it'll start traveling with the direction of your install, and it'll get too tight. I probably went a little bit too deep on that one. I've already installed this a few times. So basically the wood is kind of tapped, and if you want really exceptional tone there at the last, you can epoxy glue these in even, because if you ever wanted to remove them, all you got to do is take a 25-watt soldering iron. Obviously by then you'd have the heads cut off, and then you just remove this ABR1, take a soldering iron and touch that stud, and it'll melt the epoxy enough that you can then remove it with ease. But the target here, when I'm building a guitar, I went too low on this, way too low. Let me just take it up a little bit higher than it needs to be. Oh. My initial target is basically let rest atop a bamboo skewer, and then pull the bamboo skewer out and just go down about another turn, maximum 1/2 to 1 turn. And at this point, if I was going to play the guitar for a while, Okay, go ahead and lock this. Bear with me, I'm not through. But go ahead and lock that. But then know that you're getting ready to do adjustments. So now just back it out about a turn and a half, maybe 2 or 3 turns, so that it allows you to raise this up as much as you need to. But as you're playing the guitar and getting used to it, you're not uh, you're not hanging on a stud that's sticking up and scratching your hand. That ought to make perfect sense. Okay, so that's one of my favorite ideas about how I build guitars. It makes it so simple to get the initial setup, and it guarantees you that when you're installing this, you're not trying to install one of the studs out of the packet down into the body before you've ever even painted the body, and you run the risk of marring the threads and stuff like that. And if you want, you could remove these after this is set up and it's exactly where you want it. Well, then you could move these studs 100% and just install the ones that were sent with the ABR1 and epoxy them in if you want. Or in my case, since these studs are super, super tall, if I determine that this is exactly what I want, I remove it, put the epoxy in there, take them back down, verify this height, and this magic number right here should always be about 14 and a half to 15 millimeter. That's pretty cool. It's exactly 14 and a half. So I've kind of got a calibrated eye from working with stuff like this for so long. But once you get to that location right there, then what you could do is you could just take this all the way down to the bottom after the epoxy dried and everything's set. And you could take a hacksaw and just hacksaw the head off, and then take a real fine mill file and just mill file the top while you're running a vacuum, and obviously have your multi-$100 pickups covered so you don't scratch them. But take a mill file and shape those threads, and then your studs are in. And that's the sign of a good build. It ought to move with ease, whether it's down really low or torqued up high. Okay, check the time. 37 minutes. Okay. All right. What should I talk about? All right. So I showed you how to go about installing the pickups. Let me be careful before I drop this thing. I got a bad habit about leaving tools on the table, but usually once I put the Wildcat fur atop the table, it kind of puts me in the psychological mode of being real careful about tool placement. So I don't know if I mentioned it in this video. I know I mentioned it in the last 3 or 4 that I've deleted and erased, but the target is the very top of the thread. Okay, the shaft, it's the brass shaft itself. I want to be able to see the beginning of the thread. If I see like one full thread on the shaft, then that thing's too tall. It's too high out of the body, and I won't be able to get my knob down low enough. It'll be floating up way too high. So I just know that a good rule of thumb is that if the top of the shaft is just barely protruding above the face nut, then you're in good shape. And you got to have a face washer, obviously. And don't be afraid to, read between the lines, don't be afraid to tighten these, because the last thing you want to do is build a guitar and then it come loose on someone later on. And you can pinch these in a little bit. You should, so that they'll be a good fit. I hate that. I don't understand why they don't just machine them perfectly precise. But it seems like I always have to pinch them just a little bit. And they should go on with these. Turns into a guitar very fast. Just make sure I'm not scratching anything. Really beautiful. Love that. And I put that one on wrong. That's funny. Let's see it. Oh, this will give me the opportunity. Which one did I put on now? Yeah, that one. Business card. I don't know. I don't think you guys can see that on camera, but man, it's got wildcat fur all over it, and it is smudged. But it's really, try to get my hand out of the way. That might be the thumbnail. Try to find out where I should hold it. Probably about right there. Really beautiful. And it's pretty cool when you, obviously, you know, as I mentioned, I think I've already shown this. I know I did in one of the other videos, but you know, just a nice reflection. It's a player's guitar. It's got a few little divots and dings and stuff. And this is not the actual bridge that's going on it. This is just a mock-up chrome. I always keep some little tape cut in case I'm doing a video and mock-up. I always try to tape that just to make certain it doesn't slide off and scratch everything up. Okay, should guarantee that it won't fall off. That was the one, I should have shown that in the video, sorry. Because that actually shows, it's pretty cool. I don't know if you can see it, but I can see the reflection of the actual bridge into the body. It's really beautiful. Anyway, so let this motivate you to build your own custom guitar, whether it is an Explorer replica or a Les Paul Jr. I've been wanting to build a Les Paul Jr., but I've built so many of these other Gibson replica products. I'm actually kind of burnt out. I'm tired of building them. And I'd mentioned in one video, well, about 3 or 4 videos back, I'm actually really considering going back into just building jazz guitars, acoustic, hollow body, hand carved, big body jazz guitars. And I might build some more rock and roll guitars in the future, but I've built enough over the last 3 or 4 years that, you know, it's not boring. It is a little bit, but it gets old. I like the challenge. This is a beautiful guitar. I don't think I mentioned, I know I didn't mention in this video because it's a repeat. This Bolivian Rosewood is about 25 years old, if not 30 years old. I've had it that long. There's no telling how old it really is because I bought it from a guy that was retiring from building classical guitars, or he did retire. And bought it a long time ago because I was going to either, you know, use it on jazz guitars or like this right here. So that's a very rare fretboard, and perfectly straight grain, and it is perfectly quarter sawn. It's really beautiful. That's a Stuart McDonald Australian white, mother of pearl, Jescar frets. I'll go through the specs a little bit. Clue nickel, you know, replacement reproduction tuners, tulip heads, plastic. One guy had asked me about, hey, what would be the odds of going with like a, you know, nickel tuner heads? But the whole idea about this guitar, it's right at the threshold of being a headstock diving guitar. You want to keep it as light as possible up here. So, you know, bone nut, you know, brass nut's not a big deal. It's not all that much weight, but, you know, it does add up. I'll go ahead and put the truss cover on here as well. I'm going to have something thin to get that off the table. These are nickel round head screws per Gibson specs. So everything you do, that's what I meant by, you could deviate if you wanted to, but don't expect it to look historically accurate. As I've mentioned in the past, certain things you shouldn't try to do on camera. These screws are so small I can barely see them. Or barely hold them as well. Okay, this is, if I can find it, this is where I definitely would use my toothpick to my advantage. Get me started. All the more reason to make certain that your truss rod is in the correct location so you have room for that screw to actually pass through. And as long as it didn't move, that toothpick should have it in the correct location. The reason I say these ridiculously rudimentary things is because it keeps your frustration level down, and it also, if you hit it right the first time, it guarantees that you don't slip off of the nut with your driver and drive a dent into the headstock, which would cause a 2-day repair. So all the same specs as a 58 Explorer, but it is a replica. It's pretty cool. You can buy these production parts. And the cool thing about when you pick a guitar like this up, the primary thing, as long as you got the pitch correct on the neck to the body install at about 1 3/4 degrees, 2 degrees max, and as long as this height right here ends up being about 17 millimeter, or 11/16 from the top of the guitar to the top of the AVR1, what does that equate to? A 58 Explorer or a 58 Flying V. That's exactly what those dimensions are. And obviously what that means is when you pick up this guitar to play it, and your everything about the feel, that's why I can be kind of arrogant and say that I'm building 58 Explorer replicas. It's going to feel like a 58 Explorer or a custom shop replica, So make certain that you spend some time getting those things correct, because it'll assure yourself that you build not only a beautiful guitar, but you don't want to build a beautiful disaster. It looks great right at the point where you hand it to your buddy that's a pro guitar player or a session player, and he just says, "Yeah, it's nice." If you don't hear wow, when they start playing your guitar, you missed your target. So because it ought to just feel incredible as soon as you put your paws on it. I wish I had some strings on it, but this thing feels amazing. This would be a nice Christmas present for someone. Let me check the time. Is it 48 minutes? Okay, let me pause. I think, yeah, or maybe I could just keep talking about this, because I want to start talking about templates and how to go about. Yeah, like I promised. Let me do that. Let me pause, get the table organized, and then we'll talk about doing some router work, as I promised at the beginning of the video, because I don't want to try to put the strings on this on camera. I have not played this guitar yet, but as soon as the camera gets turned off, that's the next thing I will be doing, is installing temporarily, this bridge assembly here, and stringing it up in preparation to start leveling the frets. They're basically, they're pretty close right now, but they have not been leveled or polished yet, so there's still a little bit of work to be done on this guitar. All right, so let me pause. Okay, the only thing I forgot to talk about with respect to this guitar is, I don't think I showed this, but yeah, because I was getting ready to, and then I installed the cover. But I always build these guitars with an original Gibson Dimension bone nut, and and every bit of this starts at the very, very beginning, because the whole idea about building this guitar, wherever this fretboard ends, that's where the headstock starts pitching, and then where the bow nut goes in determines where the truss cover goes in, which also determines where the truss cover ends, this screw, in relation to the A shaft. All that's historically accurate. If you get off a little bit, it's not that big of a deal. You can't really see it unless you're just really scrutinizing the build. But you want to make certain that that you're remaining historically accurate in everything that you do, and that's why it'll look like a historically accurate guitar. So let's do this. Let me get this out of the way, and I don't think there's any reason to have to take it off the table. So we'll just slide it over here, and we'll talk about. Okay, so you will need three different templates just to do your control cavity. Okay, so let's set these to the side and show you where I came up with those. I've already talked about, I don't know if I talked about in this video, but everything is determinate upon the location of the outer potentiometer and then the center of that potentiometer, which every bit of that was just derived from the actual Electric Herald plans. Okay, so the cool thing about the Electric Herald plans, well, you can X-Acto knife out anything it is that you need to make a template. See if I can get my hands on this without making a fool of myself. Anything that you need to make, well, you start by X-Acto knifing the paper out of the plans, and I mean spot on accurate. Because if you start missing dimensions, and I mean, we're talking 64ths of an inch, you start multiplying that by 5 or 6 different sides, then you'll get off considerably. But the first time I built the very first one, I had 2 or 3 of these print-offs from my local UPS copy store, and they only charged like $7 or $10 to print this off. And then I printed off two or three of these copies. I had everything I needed, the heel profile, the location of everything, the path of all the channel, the dimensions and the pitch, the degrees of the pick guard, and then attach that piece of paper atop this right here, and then just very cautiously, precisely machined all this out, and then started. And if you want to know the truth, if you can just get your hands on a nice pick guard, you can build the guitar around the pick guard, and it look exceptional. You can get exceptionally close. And I'm going to digress a little bit here. Things like, let's say you didn't know exactly, where this location started right here and where it ended. Well, just look at an online picture and look where it intersects the pickup. If it intersects the pickup at the D string and then comes down and intersects right here, I'm just grabbing the stuff out of air. Well, then that will tell you exactly where to draw that initial line right there. And once you have that line, by deductive reasoning, you can start assessing what is this angle right here. Then you can start kind of designing your own footprint. But be careful, because what you see online is very rarely identical to this right here. So it's best to just get a set of prints. I shouldn't have even brought that up, but nonetheless, so that's where all this came from. So let's talk about once you have that stuff, how do you do it? What's the first thing? Well, I go ahead and drill these locations first. So there will be 3 drill locations in the back, and then typically what I do is I just stick the drill bit back in the hole. Stick a 3/8 inch drill bit there and a 3/8 inch drill bit up here, and I find the center line. And then once I have that center line, or then I can also determine this offset. And once I have all this stuff, and I've already put some tape down, and once I have all those dimensions, then I simply come in and I've got some masking tape down on the body here. I've got a pencil line drawn for the center in this direction and the center in that direction. And then I simply take, which one do I do first? I'm sorry, I do the small one first. This is the deep cavity. because see, this is the actual, this will be the template for the ledge. And since that is a loose fit, as long as I have a good router bit with a good bearing, then once I machine this cover, then it should be a perfect fit. Okay, so that's kind of self-explanatory. But this is not, make certain that you don't get ahead of yourself and then route out the whole body per that right there, because you will have routed it out way too big. See, this one is considerably smaller. I don't know if that's showing up in the camera. Let me just put it where it needs to be, then I'll just show it. It's about an 1/8 inch more narrow on both sides, so it's about 1/4 of an inch more narrow than the ledge, but it's probably, I think it's 3/4 of an inch shorter than the total run, but divided by in the half, it's 3/8 of an inch ledge on either end. And how do you do that? Well, then the first one is based on the center lines that you have right there, and you simply put some masking tape on the back side here and some masking tape on the back side here. Use your medium strength CA glue. Put a dot, about maybe 3 to 4 dots is all you need. Don't glue it permanently. Just a couple of few dots on each end or each side, and then simply align this and hold it in place until it dries, and then you are ready to go over. If you wanted, you could take a Forstner bit and do some rough out, but then you're able to go over to your handheld, your router station, but use your handheld router and just simply start routing it out. And most of you guys already know this, but for those of you guys who have never done this, this is some invaluable information, because a lot of us would look at that control cavity that have never done this, and we don't really know which operation is first. But route out the cavity first, get the depth, so that after it's all said and done, once you make that final pass, PASS on the bottom, that the thickness in here is 7/16 of an inch thick, no more. Or it could be under. If you were going with a short shaft potentiometer, it would need to be about 1/4, I think. But I like leaving them 7/16 of an inch thick in that area in case it took a real hard blow. It wouldn't risk cracking. And also from a tonal standpoint, it sounds a little bit better, I'm sure. So, and then after you machine that one, then you remove this, clean up all the tape, put additional tape down, and then tape this template down for the perimeter. And this is where, well, this is for doing the ledge. I can't hold it. It's impossible doing this stuff on camera sometimes. Anyway, that would be the ledge. I don't know if it's showing up. I'm sure it's off because I can feel it sliding. Okay, so basically then you would run the router again, but you would want to, this pass has got to be correct the first time. Obviously ease into it, but the way you adjust this is you turn your router over. Let's say this is the bottom of your router. And I don't know if I can explain this. Yeah, if this is the bottom of your router and the router bit is sticking up out of the router deck, this depth right here is based, yeah, this is how I do it. I've got that set up on my guitar body. I lay my actual pick guard material up on there, and then this will make sense. Okay, that dimension right there is what I now transfer over to my router, and that's the maximum height that I want my bit out of the router bit, because once I remove this material and it is in its appropriate location, and I set my router on here and I make that one pass, it'll pretty much be perfect, and it'll guarantee that my template flushes out. But I'll say that to say this. What I typically do is I set it up exactly where I want it, and then I go just a little bit deeper. I'm just going to stop. So go just a little bit deeper, because the last thing you want to be is proud. You do not want this pick guard, this control cavity cover sticking up out of the body. I'd rather have a little bit of a ledge where it drops down in there, because I can always come in. If I wanted to flush it out perfectly, I can always come in here and spray a little bit more lacquer in that location, kind of build it up if I need to, and work it down. But if you machine it too shallow, you're going to have to repeat this process of aligning this again and getting it back up, which is not the end of the world, but it might cause you to have a beautiful finished body that now you're taping on and you're getting ready to route again, and you didn't, and maybe you got distracted and you only put jet glue on one side and you forgot to do this side. And then as soon as the router hit, the thing jerked. You just lost your whole guitar. And I'm not being melodramatic. I've never done stuff like that, but I have done it in locations like this right here, where I had this. See, this is religiously. I never drill that location for the output jack, because it has happened to me more than once where I was up here getting ready to route for binding and was running I was so focused on trying to protect the body that it was a different type bit, but as the bit was coming around and I was routing for the binding, the bearing actually dropped down into the output jack hole. And as soon as the bearing followed that path of least resistance, I destroyed the top of the guitar. And it forced me to have to do really intricate repair work to try to conceal what I had done wrong. So I'm not being dramatic. It's just that those are the sickening things that